All right, guys. Tonight, I want to go over the redistricting war that's been going on in this country. So we're going to look at how it started, how it's been going, who's winning the redistricting war, and where it's headed. So we've got a few articles, a couple videos to go over tonight. So way back in July, seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? Donald Trump called Governor Greg Abbott from Texas and demanded that he give him 5 more seats so that they could try to steal another election. He should know that when Trump calls you about an election, you should just ignore the call or tell that fat Nazi to fuck off. But Greg Abbott is also a spineless fat Nazi, and that's probably why God took his legs away, I would imagine. This is funny because this is the same month that the flooding killed all those children in Texas. And I don't know, we haven't been over it yet, but there definitely will be a video about that coming out pretty soon about Kristi Noem's negligence and how she delayed certain FEMA responses during the Texas flooding that led to possibly even more fatalities. So I just think it's silly that the governor of Texas here, who, they're in a fucking death cult, he's here to offer more of his constituents up on the slaughtering block for the disgusting fascist in the White House and his terrible regime that's led already to more deaths of Texans than otherwise would have been. You can see this, there's FEMA cuts all over the country. We can see that. That's not really what this video is about, but there is going to be a video coming out probably this week, maybe next week, about Kristi Noem and why she should be impeached, why we should all support the effort to impeach her, and how she dropped the ball with FEMA, among many other terrible things she's done. So we're going to start with this article here. Texas Republicans, including Governor Abbott, were reluctant to redraw the state's congressional maps. Then Trump got involved. This is Greg Abbott here, if anyone wants to know what he looks like. Before he called lawmakers back to Austin to redraw Texas congressional maps, Governor Greg Abbott was initially resistant to the plan pushed by President Trump's political team to pick up new GOP seats through a rare mid-decade redistricting. According to 2 people who have spoken to Abbott and the White House about the behind-the-scenes discussions, the majority of Texas GOP congressional delegation was also wary of the idea, with many members concerned that Republican map drawers could miscalculate and spread their votes too thin, thus putting their jobs in jeopardy while trying to flip Democratic seats. 6 people involved in internal delegation discussions told the Texas Tribune. And that's funny too, because after all this work, that still may happen. Trump, we've talked about a lot on here, is historically unpopular, and he may very fucking well have fucked them over by doing this. We just need, some of these districts now are going to have even thinner margins. And so hopefully, sometimes the writers use foreshadowing. One would hope. Yeah. Hopefully the extreme fascist, grotesque actions that Donald Trump has been carrying out, especially this month, but for the last year, will allow enough Texans to make the decision to say, fuck this shit. We don't want it. We're just going to bite the bullet and vote blue. Abbott told House Republicans from Texas that he was reluctant to take up the issue in Austin, where the state lawmakers approved the new lines if it would pit him against the delegation. In discussions with Abbott's office, White House staffers attempted to assuage his worries, but were unsuccessful, according to 2 people with direct knowledge of the developments. Then, Trump placed a call to Abbott, during which they discussed redistricting. The governor subsequently agreed to put it on his agenda for the special session, according to 2 people who spoke with the White House officials about the call, one of whom also discussed the matter with Abbott's office. Trump's involvement underscores the immense power he holds over Texas They're fascists, right? Trump's involvement, yeah, gross, disgusting picture. Trump's involvement represents that Republicans want to live in a monarchy with a king who tells them what to do, and they don't like democracy. They're anti-democracy, they're anti-constitution, they're anti-representation. They really shouldn't be called Republicans, right? Because that's about having representation. So I think, the Republicans, especially Greg Abbott, they hate this country. They hate freedom. They hate your right to vote. They hate fucking, everything we stand for, everything that's good about this country. They're fascist pieces of shit who need to be swept out of office and probably 100 other things. Trump's involvement underscores the immense power he holds over Texas Republicans and shows how far the president will go to protect his Washington trifecta that has handed him sweeping legislative wins, even if that means irritating those who are voting to approve his agenda in Congress. If Republicans lose control of the House next year in next year's midterms, Trump's agenda would be stalled and his remaining 2 lame duck years in the White House would likely be replete with Democrat-led investigations. The details of the redistricting dynamics were relayed through almost a dozen people, many of whom were granted anonymity to discuss internal deliberations that could have legal implications. Any new map passed by the legislature would almost certainly be challenged in court. Again, guys, so this is like, it's so important that you vote. That's how we defeat Trump, is voting this year in the midterms. Less than 10 months from now, we're going to have those elections, guys. Vote, vote, vote. He's afraid of you voting. He knows that that's how we take his power away, and he's fucking terrified of it. He knows that. Use your power, the power that you have in this country, and disempower him. Get him out of office. End what's happening here. So we're not going to go through this full article. Again, guys, so everything we read here, everything we watch here is going to be linked in the description for you if you guys want to do your own research on it. But so the point is, in July, Trump called Abbott, give me new seats. I need new seats. And he acquiesced. However, the Texas Democrats, so the Democrats in the Texas House of Representatives, in their state House of Representatives, refused to participate in this. At least for a while, they held out, including fleeing to Illinois. So there was an effort to call their Congress, their state Congress, back into session, and the Democrats fled the state to make that impossible. So 40 Texas House Democrats fled to Illinois on Sunday. This was back in August, I think. So this article is from August 4th. So about 2 weeks after what we just read. 40 Texas Democrats fled to Illinois on Sunday to deny Republicans a quorum needed to approve new maps that would expand the state's GOP congressional majority ahead of next year's midterm elections. Texas Democrats, joined by Governor J.B. Pritzker at a Sunday night news conference in Carroll Stream, where the Democratic governor called President Trump a cult leader and would-be dictator of the United States, both are true, for demanding mid-decade redistricting. He was also defiant in saying that Democrats would have to explore their own map options if the Texas plan goes forward. So what I want you guys to remember, too, is another important thing is that Trump started this. He started this war, he started this battle, and now we have to fucking finish it. But that's the point. He asked for this. He demanded this. The fact that we are very good in Illinois about delivering for the people of Illinois and the people react to that and vote for our candidates is very different than cheating mid-decade by rewriting the rules because their cult leader, Donald Trump, tells them to do it. Pritzker said, remember, all bets are off when the cult leader and, would-be dictator of the United States tells Texas to midstream change the game when they know they're going to lose in 2026. This is another thing, too. So we're going to, as the night goes on here, as we read a few more of these, we're going to find out that both blue states in response and also red states on the attack have decided to redistrict. And the way that those states redistrict is very different. In California here, which we'll get into next, we believe in democracy. And we believe that your government should represent you and what you want. And that's important because we understand that the only legitimate government, the only legitimacy that government has is that it represents the people it reigns over. Donald Trump doesn't believe in that. Greg Abbott doesn't believe in that. So what we're going to see time and time again is Republicans through their legislatures, they're going to pass these redistricting efforts and Democrats are going to have to put them on the ballot. And in our states, we have laws that make it so you can't just do a partisan gerrymander. You have to put it up to the vote. So that's another key difference between Democrats and Republicans. So every time some fat dipshit on the internet wants to tell you both parties same, remember that's one of thousands of ways that the Democrats and the Republicans are different. We believe in democracy. We believe in putting shit on the ballot. We believe in voting and representation. The Republicans believe in fascist backdoor rigging. Important. We're not going to go too into this here, but the point is the Democrats did flee. The Democrats did flee to Illinois here. There was a whole fuss about it. Greg Abbott threatened to send the National Guard in at one point, and they said, well, we'll have the Illinois Guard come in there and all this shit. And there was a point where he ordered like the police under their jurisdiction to protect the Democrats from any sort of assault like that. But What we're going to play here is a quick video. This is J.B. Pritzker welcoming the Texas Democrats who fled over GOP redistricting plans.
We're here, of course, because Texas House Democrats are demonstrating what it means to fight for the preservation of our constitutional republic. Donald Trump, Governor Abbott, Texas Republicans, well, they know that they're headed toward a loss of the Congress in 2026.
Right. They know what they've been doing. Everyone fucking hates. They understand how hated they are, and they're trying to cheat. They're scum fucks. Don't forget that.
They're afraid, and they should be. Because when you try to tear health care away from veterans and seniors, from children and people with disabilities, when you raise tariff taxes on groceries and beer and
this is all the shit we cared about 6 months ago. They've done 100 evil things since then that are far worse. But this was just in the wake of the big, beautiful bill being passed, which we're seeing the consequences of that now play out with ICE on the streets every day, because the big, beautiful bill, expanded that funding for ICE so far beyond what it was.
Automobiles.
One of the many ways that bill fucks you.
When you let poor and working class families go hungry, when you allow smokestack industries to pollute the air and remove safety standards from food producers.
Yeah, this is also going to be there's going to be a big video coming out. I'm not sure when, because it's going to be one of the more produced essays I'm working on about agency capture and about oligarchy control, corruption in the political system. And it goes over and compares the difference between how effective these companies are at their corrupt manipulation of regulations and forcing deregulations through under Democrats versus under Republicans. So that's also going to be something you guys can look forward to whenever that comes out, hopefully before the midterms, but who knows?
Well, all so that you can give a massive tax break to Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Bill Ackman. Well, frankly, you'd better watch out. Yeah. You're going to lose your elections. So they've decided that the only way to save themselves is to cheat, to change the rules in the middle of the game. And what do MAGA Republicans in Texas do when Donald Trump ignores, well, his oath of office and theirs, and when they're taking it upon themselves to thwart the will of the American people? Well, they say, when Donald Trump calls, they say, yes, sir, right away, sir. Happy to lick your boot, sir.
You know, Pritzker is one of the people I want to run for president. I think he would be a strong candidate, and we'll do the deep dive at some point, guys, like we did for those of you in the chat, like we did for Mark Kelly. We're going to do a deep dive of all these candidates, and then as we get closer towards the end of the year again, we're going to do a redux of our 2028 candidate tier list. But J.B. Pritzker scored pretty high for me. I like him a lot. He's not a perfect candidate, but I got to say I like him more than Newsom, probably. So we'll continue on with
When
this.
Donald Trump says jump, Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton say, how high? They don't
That's true. He is fat, but so is the president right now.
care that they're violating the Voting Rights Act and racially gerrymandering their state. Well, they're hoping they can rob the bank and get away before anyone notices. Texas Republicans are trying to diminish the voting power of their own constituents, and in doing so, diminish the rights of Illinoisans and all Americans. Texas House Democrats are putting their lives on hold and their livelihoods at risk because they don't want to live in a country where the president rigs elections for his side. That's
something that the president already had to do, tried to do. You guys can check out the Jan 6 deep dive we did. There's like a 3-hour long deep dive we did of a play-by-play over Trump's scheme to rig the elections. You guys haven't seen that? Maybe if I remember, I'll link that here along with the other sources.
democracy. That's not America.
Like Trump has run on attacking voting. He attacked voting his first term with Jan 6. He hates voting. He's always hated voting. His whole scheme to stay in power is to disenfranchise voters.
To be in public office right now is to constantly ask yourself, how do I make sure that we're standing on the right side of history? Well, there's a simple answer. The wrong side of history will always tell you to be afraid. And the right side of history will always expect you to be courageous. Texas House Democrats are leading the way in choosing courage and country over politics and party. That's what it means to fight for what's right. And I love this country too. And I love it so much that I'm going to fight for it too, right alongside my heroes, the Texas House Democrats.
Yeah. So a little bit of political history for you guys. We're going to watch a couple of these speeches tonight. All things considered, this is an important moment of history we lived through. And it's also our job to chronicle that in a way, right? To be aware of what happened and what's at stake. And also when the fascists, if they're ever in power again, and they try to rewrite history like they do with January 6th and 100 other things, it's important that we know the truth and that we counter that. So there's a record of all of this. And again, this video is going to be in the description too. But it's a historic moment, really. One of the many that we've unfortunately had to live through this last year. So eventually they did go back, the Democratic representatives. They were away for quite a while, for weeks, I think. I don't remember exactly when they went back, but eventually they did go back, and the Texas maps were passed initially. We have more on that, I think, in a little bit. But yeah, but when they went back, the reason they went back is because California woke the fuck up. And we said, fuck you fascists, we're going to beat you at your game. So we took it upon ourselves to go forward with Prop 50. And Prop 50 was the measure to redistrict here to give 5 more seats to Democrats here in our state, in California, in my state. Not the rest of you, but my state. And, I'm very proud of my state for how we reacted to that. And props to Newsom for sure, because this is possibly the most effective pushback to Donald Trump that happened last year. The single most important thing in stopping their scheme to destroy our democracy was to get Prop 50 passed and to negate the corruption in Texas. So like I said before, we didn't just try to do this through backdoor dealings in the legislature. We had to put it on the ballot. So I voted last November for Proposition 50. It passed overwhelmingly in the state. And this is going to be Gavin Newsom talking about it right after it passed on last November.
And let me underscore, it's been a good evening for everybody, not just the Democratic Party.
Apparently, he's only going to be talking in our left ears during this.
Well, what a night for the Democratic Party. A party that is in its ascendancy. A party that's on its toes, no longer on its heels. From coast to coast, sea to shining sea. But it was not just a victory.
Leftist audio? Yeah, I guess so. We need to, so we'll do Newsom too at some point, and I'll talk about all the reasons I like him and all the reasons I don't like him. And we're not going to get into it now, but I'm very upset with his stance on the wealth tax. That's probably the worst thing he's done this year, other than his shitty podcast. But that's for another video, guys. For now, we're applauding Newsom for what he did here, for standing up to Trump, and for being effective at it, for being an effective leader and effective administrator.
Tonight, for the Democratic Party, is a victory for the United States of America, for the people of this country and the principles that our founding fathers lived and died for. And so we're proud. We're proud here in California to be part.
Oh, that's maybe, by the way, for us in chat, it does come in stereo. Okay, so maybe just for me then. It's like just my headphone here. You hope Ro Khanna runs. We'll look into him too. We'll do a Ro Khanna video too at some point.
This narrative this evening. We're proud of the
or
work
at least
that the
we'll look into it on the stream. I don't know
tonight
about
to send a
a video
powerful
for
message
all of them,
to an historic president. Donald Trump is an historic president. He is the most historically unpopular president in modern history. In every critical category, Donald Trump is underwater. He promised to make us healthier.
You know what's wild? He's not only historically unpopular, but he's had like the most historic swing in popularity, issue by issue. Like the most dramatic being above the water on like immigration and the economy last year when he first took office, to now being so far underwater on both of those issues, which were his strongest issues, and the reason stupid Americans, unfortunately, reelected him into power. But yeah, it's historic to see the decline. It's been pretty epic. Fucking wild. Oh, also, you guys are seeing some videos here on the side, but we're going to be covering the Greenland stuff tomorrow. Very upsetting, but not for this video.
He promised to make us wealthier. We're sicker and poorer. And he fundamentally understands that. Why else? Why else would he call Greg Abbott saying he's entitled to 5 seats? Why else is he trying to rig the midterm elections before one single vote is even cast? He understands his position at this moment in the United States of America. One thing he never counted on, though, was the state of California. Instead of agonizing over the state of our nation, we organized in an unprecedented way in a 90-day sprint. People from all over the United States of America contributed their voices and their support for this initiative. We stood tall and we stood firm in response to Donald Trump's recklessness.
Yeah, he expects everyone to just fucking lay down and take it from him. But he's fucking demented, right? He's not there. He's not playing with the full deck. He's going to try to cheat, and fuck him. We're calling him out and we're meeting him where he is, and we're doing it the right way. We're putting it up to the voters. So that's how we know our cause is stronger and our cause is favored by the people of this country because they voted on it. They didn't vote on the redistricting in Texas. They voted for the redistricting here in California.
Tonight, after poking the bear, this bear roared with an unprecedented turnout in a special election with an extraordinary result. None of us, however, are naive. This is a pattern. This is a practice. Donald Trump's efforts to rig the midterm election continue to this day, and I'll reinforce that in just a moment. You're seeing him take action all across this country, not just in Texas. You saw what they were successfully able to do in Missouri, what they did in North Carolina, what they're trying to do in Indiana, and inevitably in Florida. They are not screwing around. In June of this year, we saw 4,000 National Guard federalized in the state of California. We saw 700 active duty Marines not sent overseas, but sent to the second largest city in the United States of America to militarize our streets. We said in June this was a preview of things to come. What more evidence do you need than what happened in Washington, D.C., what's happening up in Portland, cities like Chicago? When we kicked off this campaign just 90 or so days ago in Little Tokyo, in Southern California, in L.A., at the Democracy Center, Donald Trump sent Greg Bovino. He sent his private police force.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember that. Probably not, because you're not like as following this as autistically as I am. But I remember when they announced this back in August, when they announced their that Prop 50 was going to be a thing. Donald Trump sent Greg Bovino, who's the fascist piece of shit who's committing all the crimes all over the country with Border Patrol. He sent them to stand outside of the hall where they were having their press conference about this to intimidate them. He sent He sent troops to stand outside of the building they were in to be like, fuck you guys, to intimidate. That's how fascists handle dissent. And it wasn't effective. He's a bully, and we stood up to him.
That increasingly appears to have taken an oath of office to Donald Trump, not to the Constitution of the United States. He sent them to our kickoff rally to chill free expression, to chill free speech, to intimidate people from participating. Just today, in Los Angeles, Donald Trump called up the Border Patrol, sent them to Dodger Stadium, and threw a fastball at free speech, right at the head, free expression, to suppress the vote in America's second largest city. Just did that today. People in tactical gears sent out to intimidate a community that is already on edge. But you see, as we speak, people are still in line. People waiting up 3 hours to cast their vote, to send a message to Donald Trump. No crowns, no thrones, no kings. That's what this victory represents. It's a victory for the people of the state of California and the United States of America. And this is a victory that's punctuated with a sober reminder that it's not just the actions that Donald Trump has taken to federalize our guard, to begin the process of militarizing American cities, to intimidate free expression and speech by utilizing ICE and Border Patrol in American cities. But he also announced today, right when polls were opening, that this election was rigged.
Yeah. He says that all the time. He always tries to do that.
That this election was rigged. Of course, those are familiar words. It's exactly what Donald Trump said after January 6th, that day of love, where he tried to light to...
Every time he loses, it's rigged, but when he wins, it's not rigged. We'll do another video too about Trump's other efforts to rig the election prior to it happening, including having an oligarch buy out Dominion, which is the voting machine company from our elections. But we'll get to that at another point. I just wanted to play a little bit of this. This is what's going on with California. We were able to pass Proposition 50. The voters, we all unanimously came out overwhelmingly and voted for it. And so the Republicans, who love to cheat and who hate democracy, tried to get it thrown out, and they failed. So this is an update. This is pretty recent here, guys, but this is just a follow-up on California. We're going state by state. So even though this is one of the latest things to happen, we're going to cover it now. So Prop 50, appeals court rejects Republican bid to block California maps. A federal appeals panel on Wednesday upheld the California ballot initiative that allows temporary changes to congressional district maps designed to benefit Democrats in the upcoming elections. So this article was recent. Where's the date on this? This was this week. So this was Wednesday the 14th. We're recording this on Saturday the 17th. So this was a few days ago. The other thing that's important to remember is that in Prop 50, it's written into the law that the changes we're making are temporary, and that after, I think it's 2030, so after the next two elections, we're going to revert back to the old way we did it with our committee. The measure known as Proposition 50 emerged in response to actions taken in Texas, where Republican leaders sought to adjust congressional districts and increase GOP representation in the House. In response, Gavin Newsom and other Democratic leaders in California pushed for a special statewide vote. The election asked residents, we know. After voters approved Proposition 50, Republican opponents challenged the maps in court. They argued that the initiative violated the Voting Rights Act by intentionally crafting districts to advantage Hispanic and Latino voters. The judges, however, rejected that argument in a 2-1 ruling on Wednesday. Supporters and critics of the measure now expect the dispute to advance to the U.S. Supreme Court, which previously allowed Texas's revised district lines to stand. Republicans' weak attempt to, so that's honestly good for us on our end, because it looks like the Supreme Court has already ruled that these maps can go forward. Republicans' weak attempt to silence voters failed, Newsom said in a statement shortly after the ruling. California voters overwhelmingly supported Prop 50 to respond to Trump's rigging in Texas, and that is exactly what the court concluded. In the majority opinion, denying a request to pause implementation of the maps, the judges wrote, "The United States fails to show that the voters acted with discriminatory intent. The Supreme Court ruling that partisan gerrymander claims are now subject to judicial review means Republicans challenging the California maps face the same hurdle Democrats encountered in Texas, demonstrating that race, rather than political affiliation, drove the redistricting process." In their lawsuit, Republicans cited remarks from Democratic legislators and a redistricting consultant indicating that the plan retained several districts originally created by an independent commission to enhance representation of voters of color. While such districts are permitted under federal law, the lawsuit claims Democrats failed to follow the proper procedures in maintaining them. Democrats countered that the racial gerrymandering accusations were unsupported. They pointed to an independent analysis showing no increase in the number of districts with Latino majority populations. They also highlighted public statements from Newsom and other party leaders asserting that the revised maps were intended to offset Republican advances in Texas, not to target voters based on race. So that's an update there. This is still going through court, and it looks like it's going to go through and everything's going to be good, because if the Supreme Court is at all consistent in their ruling here, that'll be the case. But also it's the Supreme Court, right? And Gorsuch and Thomas and Kavanaugh are on the Supreme Court, and they are basically lackeys for Trump and lackeys for the oligarchs. So you never know with them, but as of right now, as it stands, this is a battle that we are winning, and it looks like we're going to get a final victory on this. The maps under Prop 50 will govern congressional elections in 2026, 28, and 30. Since the passage of voters' initiatives in 2008 and 2010, California has relied on an independent citizen-led commission to redraw district lines following each consensus. So after 2030, it will revert back to that. In 2030, that's the next census, and traditionally that's when states redistrict based on the census. True. Also that. Okay, so another state that did this was Missouri. So Missouri, North Carolina, and Utah on the Republican side, I believe, have also tried to do the same thing. So at the end of this, we're going to get a recap of all the states, but I'm just going to briefly go over this with you guys. So voters sue to suspend Missouri's new congressional map until a referendum. So this is an article from about a month ago in late December. So in Jefferson City, Missouri, the question of whether Missouri's new congressional districts are in effect for the 2026 elections will be up to a court to decide. A lawsuit filed Tuesday on behalf of voters contends the redrawn map backed by Trump should have been automatically suspended earlier this month when opponents submitted more than 300,000 petition signatures seeking to force a statewide vote. So in Missouri, they're also trying to be like bitches for Trump and do his bidding, but the people of Missouri are standing up, and 300,000 of them signed a petition saying that, fuck you, we want to vote on this. We demand a vote on this. Now, unfortunately, because Missouri keeps electing Republicans to higher office, they live in a fascist state that doesn't give a fuck about what they want and doesn't represent them. So hopefully they'll win this lawsuit. We'll see. Maybe they have by now. I'm not sure. This article's a little bit dated, but just to catch you guys up on what's going on. But Republican Attorney General Catherine Hanaway says the new districts took effect and will remain in place as candidates run for office unless Republican Secretary of State Denny Hoskins verifies the signatures are sufficient and certifies that the petition meets constitutional muster. The court battle carries consequences for Trump's plan to reshape congressional districts in Republican-led states, which would give the GOP a shot at winning additional seats in the midterm elections and retaining control of the closely divided U.S. House. Missouri's new map is intended to help Republicans pick up a Democrat-held district in Kansas City by splitting off portions and stretching the rest into rural areas that are predominantly Republican. So, now this is, again, they're redistricting, but since they're already gerrymandered to shit in a lot of these states, I think this is the case in North Carolina as well. They're only going to pick up like one extra seat. So nationwide, unusual mid-decade redistricting battle so far has resulted in a total of 9 more seats that Republicans believe they can win in Texas, Missouri, North Carolina, and Ohio, and a total of 6 seats that Democrats expect to win in California and Utah, putting Republicans up by 3 so far. We've got news on that, though. But the redrawn districts are being litigated in some states, and if the maps hold for 2026, there is no guarantee that the parties will win the seats. Missouri's constitution allows voters who are opposed to a new law to gather petition signatures to put the measure to a statewide vote. If they submit about 110 valid signatures meeting minimum thresholds in at least 2/3 of the state's congressional districts, the law is placed on hold until a referendum can be held at the next November election. And as it was saying here, they already surpassed this number by almost 3 times. Historically, the state has treated laws as suspended when referendum, petitions get submitted. But Hanaway contends a law can be suspended only after the Secretary of State determines there is a sufficient number of valid signatures, a process that could conclude after Missouri's candidates' filing period, which runs from February 24th until March 31st. This is a transparent ploy to force the use of HB 1's new congressional map by delaying certification of the referendum signatures until it is too late to change the congressional map for the 2026 midterms, says the lawsuit, which was filed by the ACLU. Remember, guys, this came up in one of our more recent videos. Support the ACLU. Donate to the ACLU if you're able to. See what you can do to help them out. They're really leading the fight against Trump in a lot of ways, especially on civil matters, but also in this incredibly important battlefront here. The ACLU, on behalf of 2 Kansas City area voters who signed the referendum petition. The lawsuit comes just, are you confusing them with the ADL, buddy? The lawsuit comes just one day after the Missouri Attorney General released a statement reasserting that the new congressional map remains in effect while the petition signatures are reviewed. To suspend laws immediately upon submitting a petition would allow anyone to freeze duly enacted state laws by dropping off boxes of unverified signatures, Hanaway's office said in a statement. The latest lawsuit is at least the 9th related to Missouri's new congressional map. Some of the lawsuits contend that mid-decade redistricting violates the state's constitution and that Republican Governor Mike Kehoe, had no legal grounds to call lawmakers into special session to pass the new map. So they're doing this in spite of their voters. Their voters 9 times have tried to say, don't fucking do this. And that's how little they give a shit. That's how little the elected representatives in Missouri represent the people that elected them. They don't give a fuck about you. They're actively working to disempower you further. Vote them out. We can't be bullied. How Trump and the GOP's redistricting push in Indiana backfired. So this is one of the more recent ones, guys. So last month, well, really for months, Trump, yeah, we can't be bullied. Right. I know. Chill, buddy. Okay, I've got critics here. For months, Trump has been trying to get Indiana to redistrict. And so we're going to watch a quick video about that and read this little article here about how that's gone for him. But this is one of the more recent ones. And this is one where a Republican legislature in the state has openly defied Trump, which is a new turning point. Notably, this happened after the Epstein file scandal. So this is part of the larger wave of Republicans bucking Trump's whims. And I think that's cause for celebration.
The Indiana Senate rejecting a new congressional map after President Trump pushed for it publicly, threatened to campaign against anyone who didn't support his effort for this new map, after Vice President J.D. Vance went to Indianapolis himself to make the case in person. Why does all of this matter? We are seeing a tit-for-tat race for redistricting in states all across the country. Of course, it started in Texas. That was the big...
I'm not going to make you guys listen to her relitigate everything we just read, but what's important here is that they stood up to Trump. And so I just want to go over that here. They already voted that they weren't going to do it. Trump got on the phone with them, called them, made threats, tried to bully them, and it didn't work. So in Indiana also, his little fascist bully tactics failed. And what we're going to do is we're going to, let's see. This is in the same video. Shit. No, it's not. Okay. We're going to listen to this here. Republican State Senator Niemeyer explains his vote against redistricting plan backed by Trump. So we're just going to listen to the state senator himself give you his reasoning here of why he defied Trump.
Republican State Senator Rick Niemeyer tells me he is not worried about being primaried next year. If it happens, he'll deal with it. But he tells me he does not believe his vote against remapping Indiana is something that the voters will hold against him.
The Indiana State Senate sending shockwaves across the political landscape Thursday with a defiant 31-19 vote against new congressional maps that President Trump had been pushing for.
The dialogue on the other side was very strong, and it was a tough decision. I've been a Republican all my life, supporting Republican principles, and it was a tough decision to do.
Rick Niemeyer's district includes parts of Lake County and neighboring counties to the south. He was one of 21 states.
So there are some Republicans, I guess, who do give a fuck about what their constituents want. It's rare, but here's one of them. Okay, I guess. All right, it's that, or maybe Trump just pissed him off a little too much because Trump was being an absolute asshole to these people, to the Indiana legislatures, and actually, since this, J.D. Vance has gone on to call them out and to make threats and everything, given in light of the update we're going to get after this, which is great. But yeah, so the administration on the federal level, Republicans have been shitting all over these guys. And I think they just said, fuck you. We're not going to listen to you. We're not going to do what you want. We have our own minds. We have our own power, and we have our own constituents to look after and our own careers to look after. And we're not going to bow to whatever the fascist in the White House wants. Based.
State senators out of 40 who voted against new congressional maps that would have redrawn the two Democratic-controlled districts in blue to be more favorable to Republicans to help President Trump keep control of the U.S. House.
It was shocking. Not shocking just because it was defeated, but it is an overwhelmingly Republican body, and that was an overwhelmingly negative vote.
I understood where the administration was coming from and the importance of playing the game.
Niemeyer said he voted on principle because the old maps were drawn fairly for voters in Northwest Indiana, and the proposed new first district seemed too gerrymandered.
They put in 7 counties, about 180 miles long, and it goes to other areas of the state that doesn't fit what...
So ridiculous. When this is all done and when we get power again, we need to put an end to gerrymandering, because there's no reason we should be in this fucking arms race right now. If not for Trump, he forced us into this. This is how Republicans have power, by the way. This is how they manipulate the numbers here in the census here to give them more seats, to give them more power. That's why, Republicans are so fucking hated, but they disproportionately have more power than we do.
What our community is, and we don't fit them.
ABC 7 political analyst Laura Washington says new maps could have presented challenges for incumbent Republicans.
They know who their voters are now. They know where their districts are now. Why would they want to change midstream? Why would they want to go out and look for new voters to a lot of uncertainty in those new voters? They don't know who those new voters are. So redistricting is always perilous for elected officials.
President Trump and Governor Mike Braun have threatened consequences for those who voted against the new maps. Niemeyer hopes voters will...
They're threatening them. Not only that, but they've actually threatened them, not just politically threatened. These representatives have gotten death threats from MAGA idiots, from MAGA retards who just go with whatever Trump says, those fucking cultists who already have murdered politicians in Minnesota last year, who just go for it, who are willing to do violence on their behalf.
Consider his long record of service.
If they don't quite agree with me on this issue, or agree I should have voted differently, I don't think they're going to use this issue to say, no, we're not going to vote for you anymore after all these years. But if they do, they do. That's the process.
He says he won't lose any sleep over his vote.
I was confident.
Yeah. So that's the Indiana story, guys. So far we've covered Texas, California, Utah. California and Utah are giving votes to us, to the Democrats. Texas, North Carolina, Missouri giving votes to the Republicans. And Ohio too. The Republicans tried again here to force Indiana to play ball, and they refused. So this is a quick story here. Maryland Democratic Governor Wes Moore pushes the case for redrawing the state's congressional map. So in Annapolis, Maryland, Governor Westmore said Wednesday he wants to move forward with redrawing the state's congressional map and have the Democratic-controlled legislature vote on it, despite opposition from a key fellow Democrat concerned that mid-decade redistricting could backfire and cost the party a seat instead of gaining it one. I don't think that's going to happen, guys. I really don't. Not right now. Maryland, I know, chill. Moore, who appointed a commission to review potential maps that could soon recommend one, said in an interview with the AP that he believes the General Assembly is not just the authority, but the responsibility to be able to then have a vote to do the recommendations of the commission. This is a thorough process that they have gone through, and I think when they complete their work, it'll then go in front of the House and then go in front of the Senate, and I do think that the bodies at the point should take it to their members. Moore said during an interview on the first day of the state's annual 90-day session, Democrats in Maryland outnumber Republicans 2-1, and the party already holds a 7-1 edge over Republicans in the state's U.S. House delegation. President Trump started an unusual redistricting plan. We know, in Texas. Yeah. Every article is going to recap that, guys. We'll just skip. So the battle so far has resulted in 9 more seats for Republicans that Republicans believe they can win, and 6 more for Democrats, putting the GOP up by 3. However, redistricting is being litigated in several states, and there is no guarantee that the parties will win the seats they have redrawn. And that's especially true for the Republicans, right? Because we've seen, and the next state, the final state we're going to cover for this video is Virginia. A lot of good news over there. But, in the last election, in that special election that happened last November, we saw every Virginia district skew Democrat, go Democrat overwhelmingly. And that's going to happen all over this fucking country. All over the country, that's going to happen. Especially now. Think about how unpopular they were in November, Trump and the regime, and look at how unpopular they are now when they're murdering fucking mothers in the middle of the street. Insane. They're so much worse as the Gestapo are out there murdering moms, blinding kids for life, attacking people, locking up American citizens, pulling people out of their vehicles, the utter brutality that we've seen, gassing children, using pepper spray on students at a high school. Fuck them. We've seen them, and we hate them now more than we did yesterday, more than we did last month, and certainly more than we did in November. The American people, and remember, guys, we went over that poll on how people feel about ICE. The American people fucking hate them and what they're doing to this country. This is not going to work out for them. Moore said he called for a Maryland commission to explore redistricting because if other states redraw their maps, Maryland officials should not sit on their hands. But Maryland Senate President Bill Ferguson, a Baltimore Democrat, has said a redistricting effort aimed at flipping a seat held by Republican Representative Andy Harris could jeopardize at least 1 seat and potentially 2 that now are held by Democrats. Ferguson pointed out that the congressional map adopted in 2021 in Maryland was ruled unconstitutional by a judge who described it as a product of extreme partisan gerrymandering. The map would have made it easier for a Democrat to defeat Harris. Maryland passed another map in 2022, and the parties dropped their legal fight. Redrawing districts again could prompt a new legal challenge and allow a court to impose districts, Ferguson has noted. The reason we don't do this is because there are huge risks associated with it. And not only risk us not moving forward in the objective of having another Dem seat, it would be, in my opinion, a higher likelihood that we would lose a seat rather than gain. I think it's worth the effort. It's worth it to fight. So I definitely side with Westmore on this. Changing the map could be disruptive to the state's election calendar as well. Maryland has a February 24th candidate filing deadline and a primary scheduled for June 23rd, the Senate president has noted. Ferguson, who says a majority of the Senate's 34 Democrats also oppose redistricting this year, declined to say whether he would vote on a map if one is sent to his chamber. I think that's hypothetical. We'll see. I think we're already too late generally, and so we'll see what happens in the debate moving forward. Maryland House Speaker Joseline Pena-Melink, a Democrat, said in a recent interview that she supports the work the governor's redistricting commission has done. She said she wants to wait and see what the recommendation is before commenting on how to proceed. So that's a little contentious there between actual Democrats. Sounds like the governor and some Democrats in the House versus Democrats in the state Senate who want to play it safe. My opinion is this is not the time to play safe. This is the time to go on the offensive. Every single one of these congressmen should be out on the streets to their constituents rallying support, just like Gavin Newsom did here in California, rallying support for this push, right? So often do these Congress people just feel like they have no agency and they have to go to the whim of whatever is at the moment. But they can get out there, they can make the case, and they can convince voters. And I think, like, let's see some polling in that district that they want to gerrymander. Let's see how the voters there feel, you know? That would be what I would say before we move forward with anything on here. But so probably the biggest win since Proposition 50 in California is what happened in Virginia. Virginia this last year in the election was a massive W for us Democrats here. We took the governorship, we took the lieutenant governorship, we took the attorney general, and we flipped a ton of seats in their state Congress for us. And like I mentioned a little while ago, every district was more Democratic than it was the year before in the 2024 general election. So Virginians have stood up, they've made their voices heard, and they've said, fuck what's going on, we want to fight. We don't accept this. Virginia lawmakers passed redistricting amendment, sending it to voters for approval. And remember, even if we didn't win the election, each and every county moved left. Yep. I've got a Virginian in chat here who's feeling a little bit of state pride right now, which, go for it, man. Yeah. So another thing too about Virginia is, like California, this has to go before the voters, right? This isn't something we're doing in a back room somewhere. This is something we're putting out in the open. We're making the case to the voters, and we're telling the voters, you want to be represented? This is how you're represented. We're going to represent you in this effort too. Very powerful when you look at how they did it in Texas or in Ohio or in North Carolina or in Missouri. In Missouri, against the will of their constituents. In Missouri, where they have hundreds of thousands of their constituents signing petitions, where they have 9 lawsuits from their constituents saying, don't do this. And they're trying to force it through anyways. Here in blue states, like I said, we believe in democracy. We believe in republicanism, actually. I mean, like little r republicanism, like actual republicanism, like the idea of having a representative represent you, right? Not whatever disgusting fascist thing the Republican Party is transmogrified into, but actual republicanism. The Virginia Senate. Oh, you want me to show that? Okay. We've got a couple of data points here to look at. He knows my weak spots are like these graphs. So we'll take a look at these real quick before we get into the article. So how voters in Virginia move between elections. No two elections are exactly alike. Each arrow illustrates the shift, if any, of voters' choices for governor between 2021 and 2025 by county and groupings of counties by geography and political partisanship. So this is specifically for Virginia. This is showing the different counties here and how they all moved to the left. They all moved to us. You can see that here. This map is the margin shift. So you can see each district and see all these blue spikes, this beautiful blue porcupine here before us. This is showing you that every single district did a greater shift almost, or at least a big shift towards the Democrats. Every single one of them moved towards Democrats. There's not a single red spike on this chart. Every single one of them went blue, more blue than they were previously. Look, margin shift, the bigger, darker the spike, the more they moved. You can see some big spikes, some medium spikes, some small spikes, but a small spike is still a spike. They're still moving in our direction. This is in fucking Virginia, And then how voters in Virginia move between elections. You can see district by district here. From the reddest to the bluest, every single one of them is moving this way. Every single one of them is moving towards the left, towards our side. So good news going forward. So the Virginia Senate passed a constitutional amendment Friday to pave the way for a mid-decade redistricting push, the final legislative step needed to send it to voters for approval. If voters support the amendment, which is expected to appear on the ballot this spring, so you better fucking vote, Agent Cooper. I know you're going to, but make everyone vote too. Go out there and bring people with you, make sure everyone's voting. Virginia's Democratic-controlled legislature would be able to redraw the state's congressional map before the midterm elections. The measure would amend the state's constitution to allow lawmakers to temporarily bypass Virginia's bipartisan redistricting, except for your Republican family. Maybe, put them into like a medically induced coma for that month. I don't know. Virginia's bipartisan redistricting commission, and that was a joke, everyone. I'm joking, not serious. Okay, chill. And alter the state's congressional lines if another state does the same outside the usual decennial redistricting cycle for a court order. Virginia Democrats, who currently control 6 of the state's 11 districts, are hoping they can net an additional 3 or 4 seats through the process. The National Democratic Redistricting Committee, which is led by former Attorney General Eric Holder, has shown people involved in the effort more than 2 possible maps, a source familiar with the process said. One map could elect as many as 10 Democrats in a favorable election year for the party, the source said, while others were more likely to elect 9. Virginia Democratic lawmakers have said they will release a proposed map this month. So they've only got 2 weeks left of the month. So we should see that. I'm sure we'll cover that on the stream. The push in Virginia comes in response to... Yeah, we know what he did. Okay. Corrupt Republican sycophants in Texas, Missouri, and North Carolina bent the knee to Donald Trump and gerrymandered their congressional maps as part of a toxic effort to rig the midterm elections, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said in a statement. Democrats are forcefully fighting back. I'll also add in here that in the case of Missouri, at least, they're doing it against the will of their constituents. Democrats will not take our foot off the gas pedal until the nationwide GOP effort to prevent a free and fair election in November has been crushed, he added. Even then, don't do it. You don't defeat the Republicans and let them whimper away and lick their wounds. We need to destroy the Republican Party. The Republican Party is a criminal organization that tried to steal an election. That wasn't just a Trump conspiracy. That was Ronna McDaniel, who was the head of the RNC at that time, going to these fake electors in 2020 and saying, don't worry, we'll get you lawyers. They knew what they were doing. They intentionally tried to subvert democracy. The Republican Party needs to be disbanded. Democrats will not take our Florida Republicans are also hoping to pick up an additional 3 to 5 seats through a redistricting effort this spring. We'll follow up on that and see how that goes. The process in Virginia has been uniquely complex. Lawmakers needed to pass the amendment during 2 separate legislative sessions with an election in between. So after passing the measure before last November's elections, both chambers took it up this week as lawmakers return to Richmond. The amendment must appear on the ballot at least 90 days after final passage, which would be April 16th. Since Virginia's primaries are slated for June, lawmakers will need to call the special election this spring for a new map to be in place this year. So Virginia's going to have 3 elections this year, it sounds like. And I just want to point out, this is pretty base, just as a little addendum to this. We have this tweet here from State Senator L. Luis Lucas, who, when Senator Kaine and Warner, who are the senators on the federal senators from Virginia, gave a little pushback to this, and they support the 9-2 map, not the 10-1 map. They're playing it cautious, like those senators in Maryland. This is what she said. I have the utmost respect for Senator Kaine and Senator Warner, but we do not need coaching on redistricting coming from a cuck chair in the corner. How about you all stay focused on the fascist in the White House and let us handle redistricting in Virginia 10-1. Fuck yes. I think this she's like 80 maybe, but this is so based and such a good admonishment of how the Senate has played ball this year, how the Senate has abdicated their responsibility to resist the Republican takeover, to resist the Trump infringement upon the first article of the Constitution and upon checks and balances. Good for her standing up. Too bad she's not a federal senator, right? Too bad she's only in the state Senate. She's 81. Okay. Still based, or whatever staffer wrote this. Good for her. All right, so that's pretty much it. End of battle so far. We've got more news coming up. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video on this. I'm not sure. But for sure, we'll do like follows up. But we've been following this the whole time, and we'll continue to do so in the streams. Every time there's a new update, I'll bring those to you guys. But so this is just a recap on Ballotpedia. So redistricting is the pro. Yeah, we know what redistricting is. As of January 2026, so as of this month, 5 states California, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas had passed a new congressional map between the 2024 and 2026 elections, and litigation had led to a new map in Utah. So, California, Utah, we've got wins there. We need other states to step up. We need more states to step up and join us in this. Alabama, Georgia, and Louisiana had congressional or state legislative maps that were subject to change due to ongoing litigation. So we've got 3 more possible updates there that are going on. Alabama, Georgia, and Louisiana. I think Georgia can go either way. I'm not sure if that's going to favor us or them. Alabama and Louisiana almost certainly will favor the Republicans, but we're going to see. The fact that there's litigation involved means that maybe it's an effort to make the maps more fair, to make the maps more democratic, to allow for more blue representation in those states. I don't know the details on that, though, but we'll follow up on that. 4 states, Florida, Indiana, Maryland, and Virginia, had taken official action towards voluntary redistricting. So we just covered Virginia, we covered Maryland, and we covered Indiana too. So Indiana rejected that. Maryland and Virginia supported it for our side, and Florida is they're trying to push redistricting there. That's not come to fruition yet. So they've got to hurry or they're going to run out of time. But yeah, so we'll keep an eye on all of this, guys. As of January, Republicans have a 218 to 213 majority in the U.S. House with 4 vacancies. In 2018 elections, the midterm elections during President Trump's first term, Democrats gained control of the House after netting 40 seats. Can you imagine what we would do with a 258 majority to 173? If we got that 40-seat swing this time, that would be incredible. States are required by law to redistrict. States that are required by law to redistrict. States whose maps are subject to change due to... Okay, so that's just going over everything for us here. You can see a map. This is a real treat for me, guys. Green shows voluntary redistricting. Yellow shows subject to change due to litigation. So I'm thinking that's going to be maybe positive for us because these are all redder states. And we know in the case of Utah, they forced them to redistrict at least one district to be more favorable, and maps required by law to change Ohio. So the table shows redistricting activity. Yeah. So you can see, let's see if there's a way to, no, it won't let, oh, hold on. Damn it. Why is there a way for me to, yes, dope. Okay. So, let's take a look at this table here before we wrap. So this is showing you the state, reason for redistricting, the status, the method of redistricting, U.S. House delegation before redistricting, and potential results of the new maps. So California +5, Missouri +1, North Carolina +1, Ohio +2, Texas +5, Utah +1 for us. So they've got a net 3 as it stands right now. But all these, we've got all these going on here. We'll see how it works out. I don't know, man. Maybe it's too late, but I do wish other states would join us in this. New York, I think it's too late for them to do it, unfortunately. But there are other blue states out there, other populous blue states, and even less popular states like fucking Utah and shit, is redistricting here. So we'll see what goes on, guys. That's going to do it for the video tonight. I just wanted to go over this with you guys because it's a really important thing that's going on. It's been something that we've been following in the streams, and I want to make sure that I'm doing my job to, go over this on the channel. So thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you guys have a good night, day, whatever it is. And we're definitely going to have updates on this. So stay engaged with what's going on. Stand up for yourselves. Stand up for your country. Now more than ever, that's critical. Have a good one.